Ow! Oh God. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I feel like I have to kind of crappily sing my intro since that's kind of been my thing every time. But hello, hi, how are you? My name is Valentine Bardot, and this is a channel where we talk about weird things. All things spooky, paranormal, magical, mystical, occasionally some witchcraft, occasionally some Halloween and holiday decor. Just a mixed bag of things. I know they're like, you have to find your niche on YouTube, but you know what? I like a lot of shit. I think a lot of people like a lot of shit. I want to start out and say, wow. Wow, you guys are just, y'all have been so nice. Y'all have been so nice, and thank you. Thank you so much. All the comments have been incredibly sweet. All the comments have been really kind. I think there was one guy that was like, you're a bit early to Halloween. And I'm like, buddy, how did you even get here? Look at this. Do you even know where you are? This is not the place for you. But everybody else who is, you know what I mean? We got a vibe, similar vibes, similar interests. All of you guys, for the most part, are here because this is what you like, and that's what makes me so happy. That's what I want. It's just so cool, and I'm sorry if I'm like beaming with happiness. It's just that's what you guys did for me, is y'all are making me beam with happiness. So thank you. Thank you so much. I cannot believe you guys liked my little supernatural slumber party extravaganza as much as you seem to. With that being said, I'm not gonna do personal story times every single time. Sometimes I'm going to talk about other things. Sometimes I'm going to talk about my life. If I tried to do this series like every week, I think I would run out of my personal story times rather quickly. I do have a lot of them, but there's a lot of weeks in a year. So I'm going to be kind of shuffling it up. I don't know about you, but I got myself something yummy to drink. A delicious little treat. Relax, get comfy, get cozy, because tonight we're going to be talking about La Llorona. Totally jacked my cat's blanket. He has a billion, okay? I'm just going to throw that out there. He's got all the good ones. I'm a little cold. I was planning on wearing like robes to make it look like we're at a slumber party. You're just going to have to excuse me today. I was very cold, so I decided to put on a dress instead. I don't know if you guys are a fan of Yankee Candle. If you're not a fan of Yankee Candle, give me a candle recommendation. I'm totally down to venture out. Isn't it cute? Oh God, it smells so good. Oh my God. Best candle in all the land. Jack-o'-lantern. So tonight we are talking about La Llorona. Llorona is probably one of the most well-known stories, I'd say, like amongst the Hispanic culture. Latin culture all over the place has a story or variation of La Llorona. She's kind of like banshee-like, but next level. Banshees aren't nearly as malevolent. She's a sad, wandering, lost soul. She takes out her revenge. A lot of people who grew up with the story of La Llorona were told that by their parents to keep them in line. She's definitely associated with like the boogeyman. She was a cautionary tale. She was used to kind of scare children to not go near water, especially not at night. And some parents would just use her constantly as like figure, like a ghostly, ghastly figure who was going to come and get you in the night if you didn't brush your teeth before you went to bed. So she's become kind of like an icon in the Latin American culture. She's used all the time. My mom personally never threatened me with La Llorona. My parents were much more of the like, you're a twin, and if you misbehave, we'll pull out the good sister. Some kids would get threatened that the boogeyman will get you if you don't do the dishes or like do your chores or clean your room. The boogeyman will come and snatch you out of your bed at night. You can tell what kind of mom I'm gonna be. Well, Oh, scary story, child. Yeah, so my parents always just told me about my good twin and how they would replace me instantly and no one would know that I'd disappeared. That says a lot about my parents, my childhood. It was like more mind games than scary stories. Their number one spooky tale was always about the goat man, never about La Llorona. That's what she is, though. She is the female Latin version of the boogeyman. And she worked like a charm. I know she worked on my cousins because they're the ones who told me about her. She's said to be wearing a long dress. Some people argue that it's a wedding dress because some people say that she wears a long white dress, similar to that of a wedding dress, with a long white veil, like a bride. Or some people say that it's a mourning dress. She's seen as wearing a long black dress with a long black veil because she's in perpetual mourning over the loss of her children. So being a female boogeyman, that's basically what she was. She was used to teach children to not go out late at night, to make sure that you come home at an appropriate time, and definitely don't go near water, especially not at night. So where can you find the weeping woman? Anywhere there's water, you can run into La Llorona. I mean, like, rivers mostly, but some people have reported seeing her near, like, rivers, oceans, lakes, fucking ponds. I mean, like, if it rains outside and there's, like, a substantial puddle, you might run into La Llorona. Like, she's just anywhere where there's any body of water. Just look out when you're around water. There's a huge cultural pool of women who are like kind of synonymous with death bringers. They're kind of like psychopomps. They can traverse between the afterlife and our realm, like the physical realm. And usually they're said to be linked with knowing and foretelling the death of someone. So La Llorona, the Morgan, Lorelei, Banshees, the image of a ghostly woman dressed in all white or even all black, coming to enact revenge or some sort of foretelling of death and doom and gloom and all of that. It's a pretty common trope, and usually it always has the roots of either like scorned women. I'm all about scorned women getting some revenge, man. I really am. Maybe not like in real life, but I really enjoy listening to the tales of like, that's what you get, beach. She's commonly talked about in Latin culture. So depending on where you're from, which region you're from, her story can vary drastically. They all kind of share the same roots. So, in the story that I was told, she was this amazing, most beautiful woman. Like, just people saw her and were just like blown away at her beauty. She was notorious in her village for being the fairest of them all, like some Snow White shit. Women were said to be extremely envious and extremely jealous of her beauty, and because of that, it kind of gave her this air of superiority. It definitely got to her. She was like, oh, okay, like everyone thinks I'm this gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful woman. She was like, I deserve the best. So, not only was she notorious for her beauty, she was known for turning down every man that came to ask her for her hand. She was said to get proposals left and right. Constantly, men were professing their undying love for her, being serenaded and just doted on. And her parents always felt bad. Her parents felt bad that they couldn't provide more for her. And in a way, it made her kind of resentful of the life that she was born into. She was upset that her parents weren't more wealthy. She was upset that she wasn't of a higher status. She felt like her beauty deserved that kind of superiority kind of thing, which is like, nah, you're not that great of a person to begin with. Okay, cool. So with these men constantly being like, we love you, we adore you, marry me, I will be devout, I will take care of you until the day you die. She's like, no, I'm holding out for the cream of the crop, man. Like, I am a goddess. I deserve the best, aka the wealthiest. That's truly how she felt. So she was always very like down. She was down that in her village, wealthy men weren't too commonplace. In the village, it was a lot of farmers. It was a lot of salt of the earth, work with your hands, that type of person. And she didn't want that. She didn't want anything to do with that. She was like, bitch, have you seen me? I'm a queen. So, luckily for her luck was about to change. A wealthy man had come in from out of town, and he was checking out the village. I think he owned something there, and he was checking it out. The moment she saw him, he was handsome, he looked well-to-do, he was fancy, he had nice clothes, and everybody was lining up to look at him because he just dripped with wealth. She looked at him and she was like, oh shit, there you go. That's my kind of man. He's a king, I'm a queen. Let's make it happen. She wooed him. She pulled out all the stops. She wore her most favorite and most famous white dress. And she was like, aren't I the best? He was completely weak to her charms. So he falls victim to her feminine ways, her feminine wiles. Is that a word? Her feminine charm. He falls victim to it. He's like, I can't handle it. She's gorgeous. I need her. She has to be mine. Soon after meeting her, he ends up proposing. For her wedding, she busts out the famous white dress. This time with a nice, beautiful white veil. They get married and they're madly in love. They're having the time of their life. And the next thing you know, she's pregnant. She gives birth to a son, a firstborn son. He couldn't be happier. That's exactly what he wanted. He wanted a son to be able to manage his wealth and take over after he passes. And then she ends up getting pregnant again with another son. He ends up doting on them. He spoils them. He spends so much time with them. He's so proud that he has strong, healthy, sturdy boys. And she's cool too, She was beautiful at one point, but now the boys are getting older. She's starting to age. So her beauty and what she was known for is kind of starting to fade. And remember, she didn't have that much of a personality. She was just like, I'm the best. I deserve a wealthy man. She wasn't that fun. She wasn't that special. She was just like really good looking. And that's all he really seemed to care about. But now that he's got his two heirs and she's starting to get, old, with her vibrancy now starting to fade, she begins to see that her husband is not coming home, not as much as he used to. He's working late, he's staying out later, he's making more trips, and every time he comes home, he seems to only want to hang out with his boys. He always buys them gifts now. He's not bringing her gifts from his travels. He's bringing them gifts from his travels. Her husband is starting to fade too. He's gone more often. He's starting to have affairs, and he's not really hiding them from her. He's coming home smelling like other women, with markings of other women, and not sleeping in the same bed as her. She's like, fine. I have my kids. I don't need him. Whatever. You know what? Let him do his thing. At least I still have my wealth. I still have my home. I've got my beautiful boys. Whatever. So she's starting to get bitter. The guy begins to take it to the next level. He has an affair with a woman that he starts to have feelings for. And because he's having feelings for her, he's like, I want you to meet my kids. He brings her home. La Llorona is just sitting there watching. Her husband looks so happy, and he's with his kids. He's with his strong boys that he's so proud of. He's with this new gorgeous lady. He was glowing. He was like, this is the life I always dreamed of. While she's sitting there thinking, who do you think you are? And she's watching how he cares for the boys, and she's watching how he's caring for the girl, and she's feeling like, oh my God, my life is unraveling. And she goes and she looks in the mirror, and she sees her age. She sees that her beauty is fading. She's angry that she's not what she once was. She's getting jealous, and she's getting vengeful, and she's getting full of rage, and she's like, I'm the best. I was the best. I was the best in my entire village. Everybody wanted me. How dare you? And that's when it starts to go downhill. The moment you start going to how dare you, shit's about to go down. So she's like, how dare he? Like, I was saying no to men left and right. She's burning with rage, and she's staring outside the window, and she's looking at her husband, and she's looking at that stupid bitch. He's her husband, and she sees What is he staring at so lovingly, with so much love in his eyes? It's not the woman standing next to him. She goes to her closet and she pulls out her infamous white dress that all the men in her village couldn't believe when she would wear her white dress. When she wore her white dress, the entire town would talk about her. It was the dress that she met him in. It was the dress that she married him in. So she puts on her white dress. She gets her 2 boys and she asks them, do y'all want to go for a walk? They say, yes, Mom. And they go with her. She then takes the boys through the woods to the nearest river and she drowns them. After they've drowned, the story then splits into 2 variations. The first one is that after she was crazed and she finishes drowning them, she kind of blacks out. And then when she comes to, she's standing there soaking wet and she realizes that she drowned her boys. She can't find them. The river swept them away. So she's like, the riverbank, maybe their bodies were swept up on the riverbank. In a frenzy, she gets out of the river. She starts walking up and down, crying, where are my boys? Where are my children? In this story, it says that she begins to wander nonstop looking for her children, that she doesn't eat or sleep for days. She becomes rail thin, just like a shell of what she once was. Her once beautiful white gown is now tattered, destroyed, wet, crying, looking for her boys so hard that she ends up crying her eyeballs out. Her body was so emaciated. Once she ends up crying her eyes out, she then crumples to the ground and she dies. Then the other variation of how it ends is that after drowning her boys, she realizes what she's done and she starts just screaming this painful cry. And she's like, what have I done? What have I done? And while she's standing in the river, she's like, I can't. I'm no longer beautiful. I did this to my sons. My husband doesn't love me. And so she turns around and she gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And finally, the water goes above her head and she drowns herself. Her body decayed in the water. Her dress is getting tattered and grungy. And then the fish came and feasted on her decaying body, but specifically, they ate out her eyes. It's said that after she passed, she went to heaven. She got to the gates and the angel said, hey, you're free to join the party if you can answer one simple question. Where are your kids? Where are they? And she was like, I don't know. The river had swept their bodies away. They said, well, I'm sorry, but you can't get in until you know where your children are. You've got to bring your children to us. And then once you bring your children to us, you'll be able to get into heaven. And with that, she went back to the earthly plane where she is forever condemned to wander around searching for her boys, hoping that once she finds them, they can be a family again in the kingdom of heaven. However, it was not known to her that the children were already in heaven. The angels already knew where they were and they already had them. And they were safe and sound, but they told her that she'd have to find them, so that she was basically doomed to walk the earth eternally in a perpetual state of limbo. So that's where you can find her, especially late at night walking along a river, searching eternally for something that can never be found. So if you ever find yourself near a body of water late at night and you hear the sound of a weeping woman, there's some things you need to know. Number 1, if you hear her and she's crying and it sounds like she's really close, then that's actually a good thing. That actually means that she's pretty far away and you've got nothing to be fearful of. However, if you hear the sound of a woman weeping and she sounds very far away, it actually means she's probably right behind you. So, in the case of my Whistling Man story, if I'm to take that into account, if you haven't seen my Whistling Man story, it's the last one I did. But if that's the case, then maybe that Whistling Man was far away. maybe he wasn't nearby. But that doesn't make sense, because then he did some poltergeist shit and fucked up my house. So depending on how loud her moaning or wailing is, weeping, then you can kind of judge whether or not you're in imminent danger. Another thing is they always stress, do not ask her what's wrong. So if you see or hear a woman crying, it's basically saying, leave him alone. Don't ask her what's wrong. Ask her what's wrong. You're basically opening a gate, allowing her to attack you. So with her kind of like death bringer status as like a, an omen of death soon to come, it's said that if you are one of the unfortunate souls to actually come across La Llorona and she finds you and you see her weeping and she like turns and directs her gaze at you, basically that is foretelling that you belong to her and she will be coming for your soul. Death's gonna be knocking at your door a lot sooner than you think. And then in some capacity, some stories say much more aggressive and creepier versions. It said that she's not just a warning sign of death, that she is the actual death bringer. So it said that if you turn around and y'all see each other, she can then catch you and she'll drag you to your watery grave. So fun times. Woo, La Llorona, real scary. Not a fan. I luckily have not heard a real La Llorona, only just a bunch of assholes. It's kind of like the worst boogie woman story out there for me. My hometown was covered in rivers, like rivers everywhere. Like there's just bodies of water. What if she's just like standing there, like weeping? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the story of La Llorona. I always think that her story is fascinating. Any type of like vengeful female spirit, I'm always like, whoa. I like banshees more. I'll definitely be covering them soon. But anyways, thank you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for watching. And if you liked it, go ahead and like it. If you didn't, that's cool too. No hard feelings. I understand. They're not all gonna be gems. But yeah, so thank you guys for being here and I'll see you later. Follow me on Instagram at Valentine Bardot. That's me. Bye.